The hate for Tennessee among national media continues as you see more and more people saying that the Vols are going to take a step back this year. You see a lot less support for Tennessee than maybe you even did earlier in the season. Many people have said that it is possible they go 4-8 this year because of how things are going. Josh Pate, who said the worst case scenario for Tennessee is 4-8, has now gone even further. Josh Pate recently said on his college football show that he thinks Tennessee is due for a letdown. His quote was, "How far is the Tennessee drop off?" And then he goes, he says he's not going to do glass half empty and he's going to try to pour into the glass more realistic expectations because people say he's too rosy with college football programs. And that applied specifically to Tennessee. And here's what he said, quote, "They were 10-2 last year. Their over-under win total is 8.5 right now. I bet the under on Tennessee, I think 2 months ago. Offensive line, running back, quarterback, defense, there's just a lot to backfill. There's a lot that's a great big question mark. I don't really think anyone scripted it to go the way it's gone the last few months in Knoxville." Then he adds, "Now I have this whole dissertation that I issued before we went on break, which was I think Josh Heupel could go 8-4 and win this year, meaning that the intangibles and the 2026 and beyond sort of the prism could look good for him as long as they don't get blown out 4 times. But that's an unknown." So what he's saying is they could take a step back, go 8-4, but they could still be fine long term. This all has to do with Tennessee losing Nico and the way they handled the whole thing. But that's not just the only thing that's happened. Also, Tennessee was labeled a tier 3 program in college football by ESPN last week. ESPN, the football program, ranks all 136 college football programs in tiers. So basically, tier 1A and tier 1B basically are like championship caliber teams. Okay, so that was Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State. Then there's tier 2, playoff expectations, teams with playoff expectations. That was Alabama, Clemson, Miami, Michigan, Notre Dame, LSU. In case you didn't know, that's only 11 teams and 12 teams make the playoff. And so already we're seeing a few teams that are not in the playoff expectation, but will make the playoff. As a matter of fact, that was 11 teams that ESPN labeled from 3 different conferences plus Notre Dame. So there's 2 teams not in the top 2 tiers that will make the playoff inevitably this year. Now, tier 3 is someone in the SEC has to lose games too. Excuse me. Yeah. So basically, these are teams that they think are very good, but because they're in the SEC, they have to lose. And that's where Florida, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas A&M are. Now, the explanation for Tennessee that was given for them to be tier 3 is basically that, quote, "We know you're shocked to learn that life is difficult in the SEC. The league so rarely mentions its depth or strength of schedule, and its coaches are reticent to suggest that their teams deserve any additional benefit of the doubt as a result." Oh, wait, they're actually contractually obligated to mention it in every interview, which is a troll on how the SEC always talks about how tough things are. Of course, of those tier 3 programs, Tennessee was the one to actually make the college football playoff last year. So it does feel like they're getting disrespected. This follows Paul Feinbaum saying Tennessee is not a playoff team, which he said earlier in the month. So the expectations for Tennessee continue to collapse. And I'm going to say something straight out the gate that many people haven't said. I'm not going to make a prediction for how good Tennessee is going to be this year. But bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Tennessee will outperform what I think they would have performed because of the limited expectations and what people are saying about them nationally. I think this is helping Tennessee for the season and it's helping to get them motivated and fired up. And it will allow them to play a little bit above their heads at times as the year goes on. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, FDIC, member FDIC, life made better. The national and public demeaning of Tennessee this year and what they're going to do is going to make them play better than they otherwise would have.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Now, it seems cliche to say that just because people are talking negative about a team, that's going to motivate them to play better. It does seem very cliche. Okay, everybody says that, and then it rarely ever actually happens. But it's a little bit different for Tennessee this year, and I'm going to break down why. I don't think the talent level is that far off from last year's team. I really don't, honestly. I've already told you guys, look, last year's team went 10-2 and made the college football playoff. This year's team has a slightly harder schedule. Not significantly, but slightly, because Alabama and Florida are on the road instead of just Georgia, and Syracuse is a tougher non-conference game than NC State. This team, though, the quarterback situation, I've already said, I think the quarterback situation this year, whoever starts, and it'll be Joey Aguilar probably, will be better this year than Nico Iamaleava was last year. Just won't be better than Nico Iamaleava would have been this year. So when people talk about the loss of Nico Iamaleava, like that's a big deal, what they're talking about is the loss of what they would have had this year, but not what Tennessee had last year. Nico Iamaleava wasn't that great last year. I think the transition on the offensive line and the loss of Dylan Sampson are bigger deals, honestly. You talk about the losses at receiver. I've said 1,000 times over, I think Tennessee's going to be better at receiver this year because the guys just weren't that good last year. I don't think you could be much worse. So on top of that, I think Tennessee has every reason to be better already, or at least as talented or semi-talented, close to where they were last year on top of that. Now, here's where things get interesting. You see some teams, and you can hear a whole Mike Leach rant about this, about Texas Tech back in 2009, when the Texas Tech team in 2008 that went 11-2 with Graham Harrell and Michael Crabtree. The next year, Texas Tech goes 9-4, should have won about 3 of those games. And Mike Leach goes off and he says, quote, this team has felt like they were entitled to something because the team before them won 11 games. That happens sometimes, even after you lose a bunch of players and you think you're good enough because of what the previous team did. That's not going to be the case for this team because of everything they've been seeing in the media and because of the public humiliation of the departure of Nico Iamaleava that drew them together and the leadership they have with the Leadership Council. Those are all little things that will make them play better. I firmly believe that. It reminds me very much more of the 98 team, which was the 98 team couldn't hide the fact that they lost so much talent and they couldn't ignore it. So they had to come together. The reason the 2009 Texas Tech team, for those who don't know that story, got so excited about themselves was because the narrative had gotten out there that the players actually don't matter as much as Mike Leach. So the team felt that, oh, Mike Leach is still our coach. We're just going to do exactly what Graham Harrell and Michael Crabtree did and we'll be fine. This team doesn't have that approach. I actually feel like because of the way the coverage of it has been, this team knows that they've got a lot to prove. They know they're playing a bit with their backs against the wall. They know how the season is starting with them playing Syracuse and then Georgia in week 3. They know things are going to be difficult. So they've got a lot to prove, a lot more than you typically do have to prove. And here's the really interesting thing when you draw the comparisons between this team and the 1998 Tennessee team. Not only did both teams open the season against Syracuse with the new starting quarterback and a lot to prove, but during week 3, they played what had been their toughest opponent the previous 5 to 6 years as well at home. In Tennessee's case, that will be Georgia this year. In 1998, that was Florida because remember they played Syracuse, then had a bye and then played Florida. It's all adding up, guys. It's all adding up. Now, this year, Tennessee actually doesn't have a bye. They basically have a bye between Syracuse and Georgia because they play ETSU. But I'm saying when you take all this into account, look, if Tennessee beats Syracuse, if they then go, and if they, I mean, again, they just need to squeak out a win against Syracuse. They'll get to Georgia 2-0. They have a really good chance in that game if they're fully healthy. and they could catch Georgia napping because of all the negative coverage surrounding them. Who remembers the 2004 Tennessee-Georgia game? Tennessee the week before, they had 2 freshman quarterbacks. Georgia looked like this was their national championship year with David Green's senior season. Georgia starts the year 4-0. They blow out defending national champs LSU 45-16. The same week, Tennessee loses to Auburn 34-10. Kevin Burnett comes out and says, "We'll see Auburn again," saying in the SEC title game, which means that they were going to beat Georgia. They go and upset Georgia the next week on the road. I'm saying there's a lot here, and given how much Tennessee's flying under the radar, there is a lot for them to be excited about. I think it's highly possible, and I mean highly possible, that Tennessee ends up shocking a lot of. I think it's likely that they end up playing better than they really were because of all this talk, because of all the psychological things that are going on with it at the same time.